This podcast is produced by the Harwood Productions Podcast Network. To learn more about the network and to find more of our shows, visit us online at www.harwoodpodcast.com.
Hi, I'm Cindy Harris, and today I'm making an Italian herb bread. This bread is great to know how to make because it comes together so quickly. It's loaded with basil and oregano, Parmesan cheese, and it's the perfect size loaf for dinner. Now for this bread, there's a couple of ways you can make it. If you have a heavy-duty mixer like this, you can put all of your ingredients in there and let it do the work. If you don't, however, you can cut the butter in with a pastry blender, much like if we were making biscuits or scones. So whichever way works best for you. So in my mixer, I'm going to put in 1.5 cups of flour, 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, 2 tablespoons of yellow cornmeal, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, then 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I'm going to let this mix together for just a few seconds, just to make sure that everything gets kind of mixed together. Now I'm going to get 1/2 cup of butter, and I'm going to cut it into some cubes. And I would suggest doing this whether you're cutting the butter in with a pastry blender or with the mixer. First, cut it in half one way, rotate the cube, cut it in half the other way, and then just slice through it, and you'll make these little cubes of butter. And that will really help it cut into the flour. Now we're going to cut the butter into the flour. So if you were using your pastry blender, you do it by hand at this point. For our purposes today, I'm using the mixer. I'm just going to break that butter up with my hands, and I'm going to turn this on a low speed. And what's going to happen is that flour is going to mix with the butter and start to break the butter down. Now this is going to take a couple of minutes. But when you're done, it's going to look like coarse crumbs. You're going to see the butter's just running all the way through the flour like this. It's not small and pea size like if we were making pastry. Now that the butter is all cut in, we're going to add some dry herbs. And we're going to add 3/4 teaspoon of dry basil and 3/4 teaspoon of dry oregano leaves. We don't want to use ground oregano, so make sure that these are dried leaves. And then I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. Now it's important that I let these dry herbs mix into the flour at this point. Once we put the liquid in, it gets a little trickier. So take just 30 seconds or so and make sure all those herbs get through the flour. Then I'm going to add 2 eggs. I'm going to get them mixing. And once the yolks are broken, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of heavy cream. And I'm just going to let the mixer mix these ingredients together until I don't see any more of the dry ingredients. It won't take very long. In fact, that's about it. Now it's time to shape our bread. Now before I do that, I want to get my baking sheet ready. So off to the side, I'm going to put my baking sheet with a piece of parchment on top. And on my cutting board, I'm going to put a nice generous amount of flour, because at this point the dough is still a little bit sticky. And I'm going to take and put it right on that flour. It smells really good. And now I'm going to sprinkle a little flour on top. And now I'm going to bring the dough together, and I'm going to knead it about 10 times. So once I have it so that I can pat it, doesn't stick to my hands too much, I'm going to knead it. Now when I knead, I put my right hand on top, and I use my heel and kind of press the dough down, and then I turn it a 1/4 turn. And then I press it again, turn. So that'd be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I started to feel it getting a little bit sticky on me at the end, so I'm going to add just a little bit more flour. I don't want this to be sticky at all. I should be able to hold it like this, but look at what a nice ball of dough this is. Now I'm going to transfer this over to my baking sheet, and I'm going to press this out. I'm doing it very gently because I want to keep it in a circle, and I want to keep the thickness pretty much the same all the way around. And we're just about at 7 inches right there. Now I'm going to score the top of the bread. So I'm using a non-serrated, really sharp little paring knife. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run the blade, just the tip of it actually, no further down than this, down the center. I don't want to cut through the bread, just score it at the top. And then I'm going to run it across this way, and then I'm going to cut each of those in quarters. And then it ends up being scored in 8 pieces like that. Now I've preheated the oven to 425 degrees, and I'm going to put the bread in for 20 minutes. And then at the 20-minute mark, we'll test it to see if it's baked through. Now, isn't this the most beautiful bread? Now, it has been in the oven for 20 minutes, but I am going to take a toothpick and poke it down into the center just to make sure it comes out clean. Has just a couple of crumbs on the toothpick, but that's all right. Now, I want to get this off the baking sheet, so I'm going to slide the parchment off and let this cool on my cooling rack for at least 10 minutes before I slice it. Well, if you'd like to try this Italian herb bread at home, just go to our website and visit the Daily Bread show notes, and I'll have the recipe there for you. And as always, if you have any questions, please send me an email. I'll see you next time.